as champion!
Hey everyone, today I want to talk specifically about fighting on the flanks in King's Row. It's a map that requires a lot of knowledge of intricate little hidden areas and intricate little rooms, and it's very narrow map, so you're going to end up running into the enemy team's flankers quite often. And the things that happen in particular this game are a fascinating look into what it means to fight flanker versus flanker. Do you engage in this long drawn-out battle where people are dodging each other and people are trying to escape each other, or do you run past the enemy team's flankers and try to make a greater impact on the solid frontline pushers? It's an interesting dynamic, and I think in more than any other map, this map in particular, King's Row, really develops this gameplay of cat and mouse and who is going to engage who and how long are you going to get bogged down in the narrow alleyways and the interesting dynamics that evolve from this type of gameplay. King's Row, again, more than any other map, is really a tale of two paths. It is the frontline pushers fighting against the cart or trying to capture that first control point. First area of the map really plays out to the flankers being able to get past that first gate, past the bus, and be able to get into their back lines, take out their long-range classes, take out their healers, and you have this funny little fight that happens in the back of the first control point that ends up being people chasing each other around, snipers trying to avoid the flankers, getting around to their backside and taking them out earlier. The defensive team really needs to be mindful of the little open window that exits that first building on the right that allows flankers to get through. That is almost as important as holding that front gate. I mean, don't get me wrong, the front gate is the entire first control point as far as being able to hold that position with a tank and a healer, but you have to be mindful of the flankers getting around to the back, because that's how they're going to break that first point. And so battles have to take place in that alleyway and that stairway off to the right, or you're definitely going to get decimated very quickly. Once the control point is taken over, though, the map really changes to what I mentioned earlier, this tale of two paths. That you have the main street line where the cart has to be pushed through, and there are interesting dynamics here with snipers being able to get interesting positions up high with wide sight lines down the street, long sight lines down the street, and you also have the factors of a Pharah and a Junkrat being really effective with splash damage because there's those very narrow path that the cart has to follow along the street. As a result, more than any other map, flankers need to rely on getting out of the crossfire of the front line and navigate these narrow alleyways and street lines. And there are a few buildings that line this street where smaller battles take place for health packs, but ultimately you're going to get in these interesting fights in the alleyways. And what it boils down to is, does your team value the amount of flanking that you can do? Do they have soft target healers? Do they have snipers that are wrecking your frontline guys? And do you need to put priority on forcing past the battles in the alleyways and getting to those soft targets that are pushing the cart or defending the cart? Secondary option is, as a flanker, do you play a defensive flanker? Do you intercept their flankers, cause their flankers grief, essentially, force them to focus on you rather than being able to get to your soft targets on your team? And I think the choice that you have to make here is you have to assess whether or not your team has the advantage at any given point. And you need to know where the cart is, if your team is actively pushing it or actively pushing the enemy team back, defending, doing a good job defending. And if you see that you have the advantage, then you need to intercept their flankers. You need to set yourself in positions that you know you're going to be able to cut them off from getting to your back lines. If you see that your team is having a hard time pushing, if you guys are on your heels, you're getting pushed back slightly, if their frontline people are really being able to be effective in not letting your team get a good foothold or a good push, then you need to push past their flankers. You need to avoid their flankers and put pressure on their healers and their snipers and their damage classes in the back. That needs to be your topmost priority. And if you've been able to eliminate a lot of those classes, then you need to put pressure on their tanks. You need to force a Reinhardt to turn around. You need to be able to read the current situation and know whether or not you need to play an intercept flanking role or an attacking, get in their back lines, disruptive flanking role. Good luck out there, guys, and I hope to see you in release.